Greetings. Thanks for making time. I'm Jesse Rogers. We're set to have a one-on-one conversation with a man who has oscillated in Kenya's democratic space for quite some time. Previously, he was a strategist behind the scenes. Right now, he's at the forefront, positioning himself as an alternative ahead of the 2027 general election. A man who needs no introduction, but I'll just go ahead and introduce him. Jimmy Wanjigi, prominent businessman and Safina party leader. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you, Jesse. That's a wonderful karibisho, let me say.
Kabisa, you deserve your flowers, so why not give them to
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having us. And we're having this conversation at a time where maybe I can use these words, economy stupid. And I'm pretty sure you know the catchphrase that was used to define the key essential needs of voters. It's all to do with the economy. And perhaps that's the best place to start because you're quite on the forefront when it comes to matters economy. And perhaps we start with the pain at the pump. We are having this conversation at a time when the Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority has just reviewed the fuel prices upwards, a record surge to roughly 206 shillings. Petrol has gone up by roughly 28 shillings, 40 shillings on diesel. And this is definitely going to cause strain in Kenyan households. I'm asking this question based on what the government has done so far. We've seen that VAT of fuel has been reduced from 16% to 13% in order to cushion consumers. We've equally seen a 6.2 billion shilling petroleum development levy that has been tapped in order to subsidize and stabilize the prices. So knowing the volatility in the Middle East and the far-reaching effects on Kenyan households when it comes to fuel pump prices, has the Kenyan government done enough to cushion the country from economic pressures?
Jesse, let me start by what you began with. And I think that's the moment we should be discussing. It is James Clavell, the American Democrat, who during the Clinton years said that the question in people's minds is the economy stupid, right?
Yes.
And I believe that's exactly where we are as a country. That's why you've started with the fuel crisis. It's an urgent matter to deal with because we all know we don't have money. We don't have money. And all we are seeing is money now going out. What do fuel prices mean when they rise? It means that the cost of living increases for each and every one of us, no matter where you are, no matter what you do, no matter what level of the economy you're at. I think we must ask ourselves some very serious questions. Why is it, even with that cushioning, and I want you to anticipate that if it was not for the cushioning, the diesel price would be beyond 240. The petrol price would be beyond 240. In fact, I think diesel was about 250. If you didn't have the cushioning of VAT, if you didn't have the subsidy that they have brought in.
Yeah.
Why is it so high in Kenya? Down here, Rwanda, which is further to a port than us, Rwanda, it is 204 today. 204. You're hearing nothing about cushioning of any taxation, of any subsidy. Why is it so high for us here in this country? It is that the system is completely rotten to the core. It has been. It has been a system of extraction of our money, extraction from the people of Kenya. Whether it is people who are selling fuel to us, whether it is tax, which is a huge component of the cost of the pump price, right? I think almost 52% of that price is taxation. So a little 3% from VAT is not going to cushion us. The question we must ask is, why does the government take so much from us in terms of taxation? They keep at it. They keep at it with fuel. They keep at it in our lives. And when they can't take it formally, they are taking it informally. They are taking parallel systems that are taking tax. This is the big question we must ask. Why do they take so much? And where is it going in terms of value addition to our lives? It is not coming back to us. And these are the questions we must ask. It is an extraction economy, an extraction government. And these are the questions we must ask.
Well, you're speaking to the realities of the day, bearing in mind the levies that are in fuel, and we'll get to that in a few. But there's equally so much talk, chatter about the government-to-government deal and whether it has served its purpose as touted during its inception. I'd like your take on it, because we heard that it stabilized fuel supply and reduced pressures to the dollar during the global volatility. Is the framework tested, approved, and trusted?
Jesse, you're talking about a program by the Kenya Kwanza government. I don't think the Kenya Kwanza government has credibility. I don't think so. And I don't think I'm alone in that view. They do not have credibility in the eyes of Kenyans. So to tell us whether something is good or bad, I think you know my answer. If you believe Kenya Kwanza or believe William Ruto with anything he's touting, then you are living in fool's paradise. Fool's paradise. So I mean, that's as much as I want to say about G2G or any program of the Kenya Kwanza government. All I can assure you, as I have over the last 3 years, there is a disaster continually being made to our lives. And you will witness it. You're witnessing it every day. So why should I discuss the technicalities of G2G? If you think it has credibility, argue it. I don't believe it has.
At all?
No. No. All these things are just a mere heist. Nothing here.
Since you brought up the issue about a heist, let's talk about this controversial oil importation scandal, because what we've gotten so far as public is cover-ups and denials. The transparency of the procurement process, especially if it's outside that G2G deal, is definitely quite troubling. There was correspondence running all the way up to the cabinet level, showing that there was a waiver that was approved to bring in this substandard fuel into the country in a bid to alleviate Kenyans from the global shocks when it comes to the fuel uncertainty. What say you about the handling of this particular scandal? What don't Kenyans know that perhaps Jimmy Wanjigi knows? Because just yesterday, we heard from the Senate committee that this substandard fuel is actually all the way down to the consumers. It's in the market. Yet we got assurances from the cabinet secretary himself saying they turned that ship around and it's already out of the country. What do you know that we don't know?
I know just as much as you and everybody else does. What is common to this regime is that it is just a heist. It is continual theft from morning until night. And maybe that was just an extortion game. It was just an extortion game on the players. At the end of the day, that product, as you are saying, is here. We were promised an investigation. True. DCI arrested people, right?
Yes.
All of a sudden, after an Easter incarceration, they are let go. We hear the Senate committee being told that in fact that product is currently being consumed by us. It had been called substandard. How many lies are we going to go through? We had the president, of all people, tell us that he is fighting cartels. He does not want to see cartels. There shall be no more cartels. He's dealing with them in every single sector, including this one. How has he dealt with them if the product is still here? How has he dealt with them if they are still free, roaming around here? It's a lie. And that is synonymous with William Ruto. Full of lies. Full of lies. And I think Kenyans have defined who he is and what his regime is about. So I think, why do we belabor, Jesse? Why do we belabor this point? We have already concluded.
Well,
we keep getting new and new evidence of it. That's all.
That's true, but Kenyans are thirsty for a sense of accountability. Where does the buck stop?
The buck stops with only one person.
The president.
The president. That's
Yeah.
who we elected. All these others are appointees of his. Correct?
Yes.
If you are imagining that you get accountability from Parliament, you will not. Unfortunately, you will not. Because at the end of the day, we have seen how they perform. Right? We saw them when we as Kenyans went and public participated in the finance bill of 2024. And we told parliamentarians we don't want any tax increase. And what did they do? They still increased. So at the end, the buck stops with the leadership. And the leadership of this country is President William Samoei Ruto. So if you feel pain in your house, if you feel agony in your life, if you feel somehow or another the moral compass of this country has become about lies and conmanship and all this, it is William Samoei Ruto. Nobody else.
Even the CS for energy?
No,
not
he's
really.
he's just an employee.
Okay.
What else is he?
Because some argue he has the broad-based protection.
No.
That's why he's still in office despite his PS having stepped aside.
If William wanted to fire him, he could have fired him and replaced him with somebody else from board-based. And those are just excuses. The buck stops with the president. Yes, and I have no doubt about it. Anywhere in the world, it is accountable to one person who has taken the oath of office. He is accountable on the executive. William Samoei Ruto. He keeps defining who he is. All right? That's all. Why do you belabor trying to look for excuses? It is William Samoei Ruto.
Okay, let's see how he handles this particular scandal, if it will be swept under the carpet as the previous ones, or will truly see a sense of accountability. But you question whether there's any accountability in this government.
Absolutely, Jesse.
It's
And
a
take
charade.
it even further.
Yeah.
We have seen people going to court. What has happened to the judiciary? So we will keep questioning institutions. We are now talking about a matter before Senate. We have seen Senate and parliamentary reports. What happens to them? What happens to them?
They gather dust.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So when we talk about accountability, understand it's primarily in one office, the head of state. If he holds himself accountable, all the other arms of government become accountable, I assure you. And this time we have somebody who does not believe in the rule of law, does not even care.
Okay, they say a fish starts to rot
From the head.
Okay, he should lead by example.
Exactly.
Let's talk about matters economy right now, away from scandals and matters to do with fuel. In general, there's a significant disconnect that exists between Kenya's positive macroeconomic figures. When you're talking about the GDP growth that President William Ruto and his administration tout time and time again, they tout a drop in inflation. We're below 5% currently. Stabilization of the Kenyan shilling against the dollar. But the disconnect I'm talking about is all these good figures are not felt in the Kenyan household in terms of the purchasing power. So speak to us about this growth paradox of economic expansion on one side vis-a-vis the rising cost of living that is experienced by majority of Kenyans.
You know, Jesse, for not wanting to repeat myself,
Yeah.
it is unfortunate if Kenyans still believe anything that comes from this regime. It's a total con. So let us look at our contribution as Kenyans, as taxpayers, to the Ruto government since its inception. Over the last 3 years, we're now coming to 4, the end, June is the end of another financial year.
Yeah.
We have contributed over 12 trillion to his economy, to his government, from our pockets. Of that, over 5.5 trillion is debt. All right?
Yeah.
Is debt. Is debt in these 4 years. In fact, I think by the end of it will end up being something like 6 trillion. So half of our contributions of 12 trillion to the Ruto government has been 6 trillion in debt. and 12 and 6 trillion in tax revenue from our pockets. Show me one project he has completed. Show me one project he has started and completed. One.
Well, the closest to mind is the Talanta Stadium, nearing completion ahead of the 2027 AFCON.
It's not completed.
Yes.
Show me one project that is completed. And what is the Talanta Stadium? 40 billion. Of 6 trillion in debt he has taken from us. 6 trillion in tax revenue he has taken from us. 40 billion is what you're showing us. There is a very good tracker called Mzalendo Tracker, which seems like it's well funded because they are doing their research very well.
Yeah.
Right? They are saying that the Kenya Kwanza government promised us 251 promises.
Yeah, in their manifesto.
In their manifesto. To date, they have achieved only 24 of the 251, which is roughly 10%. And we are coming to year 4. 10%. They have 500 more days, they say, to achieve the rest. That is the result of Kenya Kwanza government. Now, the tragedy is this, that with all that they have taken, we have got nothing in return to boost our growth. It has been consumption. It has been taken from our economy and has not come back to lift our lives. All right?
Yeah.
The converse is also that as they are taking this debt of 6 trillion, they are taking it from the private sector, from banks, domestic debt. So you and I are unable to grow ourselves from the domestic market because interest rates are too high and government is taking it all. So you tell me how we are supposed to grow. So this so-called growth is based on what numbers, what parameters. It's a lie, a total lie. Kenyans, no matter where you are talking about a Kenyan, is living a miserable existence. This fuel is just adding. When kids came out, Gen Z kids came out in 2024 against a tax bill, increase in tax. It is not that they were just complaining about an increase. They were having a hard time making ends meet. And they were saying, you're not going to load us with more pain. This pain has not changed, right, up until today. When you now have a fuel increase, you're just adding more pain. That's why you and I are feeling it today, and many Kenyans, right?
Yeah.
And what do you think they are going to do come budget time? This is a government that has pretended they are not raising tax, but they're giving us parallel taxation through funds, through securitization, right? Through housing fund, for example, right? Housing fund, for whatever it is an income tax, right? Which means double taxation. So they take from you, Jesse, your pay as you earn, and then they come and another income tax called housing fund. And look at the irony of that stupidity called housing, affordable housing, because it's pure stupidity. The government is building on whose land? No, Jesse, I'm asking you a question. Whose land is it? No, please answer my question. No,
it's
Jesse,
contentious.
No.
In some cases, they're trying to...
No, whose land is it?
Kenyans.
Is that not taxpayers' land?
Yes.
Right. And you're building the houses with whose money?
Our money.
Who is our?
Kenyans. Taxpayer.
Right. And then you sell it to the taxpayer. So no, please tell me how that in any sense makes sense. So you take our land, you take our money, and then you sell it back to us. Correct? So is the government in a profit-making business? Are we now, because the government is you and I, are we in the profit-making business? Is that what government is? Please answer my question.
No, it's
That's
not.
what I'm saying,
Yeah.
that this is just a fake thing. Fake.
We're not throwing the baby with the bathwater. There's no good that can come out of this.
No.
Okay.
Tell me what? unless you are giving those houses free, right? For those who do not have homes,
Yeah.
or saying there are particular services. For example, we are now cushioning teachers. Now you don't pay rent. All right, go and live in those houses. Policemen, go and live in those houses for free. So we are cushioning, right, expenses that are already being taken from us as taxpayers, towards teachers, towards policemen, right? Other than that, no. No, it's fake. It's fake. And those are the things that they are now saying is their checklist of success. It is a big lie. All right? And Jesse, I mean, let us now talk about ourselves as Kenyans. We must start asking ourselves hard questions to do with us, not about them, us. So, you asked me a question about GDP. It is fake. You asked me a question about growth. It is fake. You asked me a question about any figure that comes from the executive. It is fake. It is fake. And I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, Parliamentary Committee on Debt submitted a report that would have been submitted before the supplementaries that said that the figures that the Ministry of Finance gave as debt payments for this financial year of 1.9 trillion have now become 2.4 trillion. I don't know if you saw it, Jesse.
Yeah.
2.4
trillion.
That the figures of 1.9 that were passed in the budget is now 2.4 trillion. We've been saying our estimate has been 2.2 in debt. They've been saying it's 1.9, 2.4 trillion, right? On a revenue of 2.7. The 2.4 trillion is going out in debt, and 2.7 is supposed to be received as revenue. We have revenue figures that the Auditor General is saying are going to be less by 172 billion by the time we end up the end of financial year in June. So we are talking about maybe 2.5, 2.6 trillion in tax revenue. So 2.4 has gone out in debt payments. You think this government, any government can operate to 200 billion shillings?
It's impossible.
The counties need 400 billion. Where are you getting the balance? What do you need for William Ruto to fly his choppers? You need 500 to 600 billion for salaries. Where are you getting it? Which growth are you talking about? For 5 trillion, or even the 1.7, 1.8 trillion that is borrowing this year, show me which development is commensurate to it. Because you're supposed to be borrowing for development. Show me which development. Show me.
So we're borrowing
His development
for
expenditure is not even reaching 150 billion.
No.
That's how tragic it is. We are borrowing to consume. We are borrowing to pay debt. William Ruto, the last few years, is nothing more than just a debt collector. Just a debt collector. That is literally all he is. The rest is just stories ajaba. He is just a debt collector. Right?
Okay.
Yes.
So speaking of debt, you've been quite vocal about, the legal doctrine of sovereign debt. Let's talk about the transparency of Kenya's debt stock. Because just recently, the International Monetary Fund told Kenya to address hidden debts that are amounting to billions beneath official figures that were given, even as the country was trying to bid for an IMF bailout, which hit a brick wall until we sort out our debt issues, which brings about the issue of securitization. You talked about it earlier on. And case in point, we have this RMLF that's used to raise money to finance stalled road projects, as we've been told. Are proceeds of securitization part of the country's national debt? We have pending bills that are estimated to be over 600 billion Kenya shillings. Do we define public debt too narrowly as a country? And in terms of only loans and securities through the consolidated fund, can we truly come clean about our hidden debt?
You see, I don't know what hidden debt is.
Well,
I
it was
really-
defined by
I
IMF.
really like this thing of hidden debt.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
Chapter 12 of our Constitution is very clear about what our sovereign debt is. Article 220, 221 are very clear about where our debt is anchored. All right? That deficit must be announced in the revenue and expenditure estimates, which is the budget. Now, anything outside of that,
Yeah.
right, is illegal debt, is not sovereign to us. So if you are saying that that is hidden, that is illegal. It is not sovereign to us. Because if you didn't pass our laws, why should you and I be accountable to it? We're not going to pay that nonsense. So all IMF did was tell the Treasury and tell the Kenyan government, William Ruto to his face, listen, stop trying to con us. You may have conned Kenyans,
Yeah.
but don't try and con us. This is debt, right? You're talking about revenue from taxation to pay all this, right? You're trying to go off book, but it is the same thing. Can you go and anchor it constitutionally? Because that's what you're trying to do. Do something unconstitutional. Securitization is nowhere in 220 or 221 of our Constitution of Kenya. It is illegal. Whatever it is they are trying is illegal. They were just told by IMF, please, 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 go and account for it properly. Right? And also include, stop pretending that you don't have pending bills. That is debt. Include it in your sum total. So today we're heading to about 12.7 trillion in debt. So we're heading towards 13. If you include securitization and you include pending bills, we're probably headed towards 14 trillion. That is our debt stock. Jesse, you know, you need to understand it. That debt stock to 60 million Kenyans is roughly 220,000 shillings per person. So if you're a household of 5, you're seeing you owe 1 million shillings. People who have never even seen maybe 20,000, 50,000 shillings in their life. Your child is born, they owe 220,000 shillings. Just by being alive and being called a Kenyan. That is how tragic this is. And to sustain that debt, because we are unable to produce enough from our taxation, this government is borrowing 4 billion shillings per day, sometimes in excess of it, to sustain that debt. 4 billion per day is 3.3 million shillings a minute. A few minutes we are here, you can imagine what that counter is.
Yeah.
Right? So they are increasing the burden of 220 to us. Next year we'll be talking about it being 240. The following year, what? This year they are paying 2.4. Next year they are paying 2.6. Our estimates today, right, from the numbers we have done. I can assure you will not even be that, it will be more. Right? And this situation goes on infinitely. We have programmed it to 2038. But by the way, do you know, we're actually now figuring out with the amount of debt that's being taken daily, that this is something that is going to be endless. We will never produce enough to deal with it.
So what's the way forward? If you find yourself in a hole, you stop digging. We haven't stopped digging.
No, we
It's
haven't.
clear.
We haven't.
So how do we get out of this hole?
The biggest problem
Yeah.
is that we have too much conmanship in our politics. Too much conmanship. This hole is so big, it is affecting each and every one of us. And the politicians do not want to deal with it because it's a hot potato. Hot potato. For somebody like William Ruto, it means that if you think the price of fuel is disturbing your life, if he deals with this properly, it means literally he will not survive in office. That is the problem. So we have politicians who are trying to tell you that it's a simplified matter. It's just that Kenya Kwanza government is stealing. Oh, it doesn't know how to manage. Oh, no. A constitutional sin was committed over 10 years ago. That sovereign debt issue, that sin in the constitution, that hidden debt you're talking about, that illegal debt you're talking about, the one we call odious debt, that constitutional sin was committed some time ago, over 10 years ago. And until we deal with that constitutional sin, there's nothing you're doing here. And most of these political players are too afraid to deal with that constitutional sin. We are very clear, and I am very clear, and in Safina party we are very clear. We are not going to pay that goddamn thing. Whatever is illegal, hidden, odious, whatever language you want to give it, whatever did not pass through our laws is not sovereign to 60 million Kenyans. It is not. It is not, Jesse.
That's not defaulting.
No.
Okay.
That's a different language.
All right.
Defaulting is another language that economists and IMF like to use. No. I'm not saying that. No. I'm saying we will pay what is legal to us.
Simple.
What is not legal, what did not pass through our constitution and our laws, and the correct instruments, is illegal. And I think you're seeing it more and more now from the Auditor General. You're seeing it from the COG. Right? Are you not seeing it?
Definitely. The reports...
So you tell me, Jesse, why we should pay it. Why do we continue paying it?
Now, supplementary budget was recently passed, increasing our total expenditure by 393 billion thereabout, with security sector, education, infrastructure being the biggest beneficiaries. Even as we prepare for the next financial year, which is just around the corner, speak to the realities of Kenya's budgeting process. The CS touted that we're embracing zero-based budgeting. Is this the reality? And what's the cost of Kenya's perennial budget deficits? Because it's a reality that we spend more than we collect. KRA has just missed its quarterly targets, and we saw some changes. I think it's the Director General who was transferred. But what do you make of the budget-making process in Kenya?
Okay, Jesse, you know, I think we must be now very, very plain to Kenyans. Very plain. Article 220 talks about the budget-making process. It says we must say all our revenue and all our expenditure. Development and recurrent. And any anticipated deficit. Deficit meaning a shortfall. Right? I want you to show me where the budget of Kenya has talked about those borrowings you're talking about. Where have they put domestic borrowing of 1.7 trillion? Show me. The budget of Kenya. Not the budget policy statement. The budget of Kenya. Article 220, it's not there. It comes up in something called gazettement of the Ministry of Finance, Treasury, after 1 month after budget making. They start telling you this is what we are borrowing, this is what we are doing. So what happens in Parliament and what happens in the Treasury are different processes. The Treasury seems to have its own budget that they say is based on a budget policy statement. Parliament has what is called a budget. And why I tell you that is because Parliament can only pass debt that is going towards projects. The Treasury is taking debt that is outside of projects. So they are committing a sin, a continual sin on our laws. So budget making process, which one do you want me to discuss? The one in Parliament or the one in the Treasury? Because it seems like we have two budgets.
Yeah, yeah.
We have two books. And all of you very good analysts should actually look at it. It's actually hilarious. Okay? And it has been going on for some time. Right? And then they come and confuse you. Yeah? We're talking about a budget policy statement. Parliament allowed us. No, no, no. Parliament allows you in Article 220, which is your estimates of revenue and expenditure, recurrent and development. That is where it allows you, and that is called the budget, not in a budget policy statement. And in PFM it says you can only borrow for development. So I don't know which policy statement which policy you want us to discuss. There are two processes here, right?
Yeah.
They are not necessarily together. It's to hoodwink us. We've been hoodwinked. A criminality is going on here and is continually being perpetuated. All right? And then our eyes are, you're made to look at something else, smoke and mirrors. Just like I gave you the example of affordable housing.
Yeah.
What is that? Like the IMF told them about securitization. Hey, at the end of the day, they're tagging it to revenue. It is debt. Okay?
Yeah.
Go and put it in the correct books. In other words, go back to your laws. Anchor it, because it's unconstitutional. We keep being hoodwinked. So which process do you want me to discuss?
I think you've discussed both of them. And facts are stubborn, as they say. So Kenyans will be the judge at the end of the day. There's something that has been touted as a silver bullet, the National Infrastructure Fund. Have we got the foundations right? Because the fund aims to unlock roughly, is it 5 trillion Kenya shillings within 10 years for road, energy projects?
Please. Those are the things that are big, touted as unconstitutional, that should come and be anchored.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Where are they getting the money, for example, for that infrastructure fund?
Privatization.
Okay. So Kenyans invest, for example, in Kenya Pipeline.
Yes.
With our taxes. Right? We establish Kenya Pipeline Company. Then you go for an IPO. Right? You and I are supposed to now buy shares, private shares, in the same IPO that we have invested in. You say, so, but why are you investing shares? So that the share value of the company you're investing in goes up. Are you not? When you do an IPO, what is the basis of an IPO? If I here in this company of mine say I'm going public, I am telling people to invest in this company because I have certain programs in this company. And if they invest, their share value will increase. So it is to do with my company. So when Kenya Pipeline does an IPO, it is to do with Kenya Pipeline. You're investing in shares in Kenya Pipeline so that the investment adds value to Kenya Pipeline and it grows. Correct?
Yes.
That's the basis. So are you expanding this line to Congo? Are we going to Ethiopia? Are we going down to Tanzania? Are we directing a line to Rwanda? Which would mean more volumes, so we have more money. That's why you invest in shares. Now, what is so hilarious here? People are investing in shares of Kenya Pipeline to go and put money in an infrastructure fund that has got nothing to do with Kenya Pipeline. How does that make sense? How does your share value increase in Kenya Pipeline? Please tell me.
But how did these other countries get it right? Did they privatize?
They never did that.
Okay.
This is just a fake model again. It's fake. Why are you investing in infrastructure fund when you're supposed to have money for roads in the Ministry of Roads? Why are you investing in an infrastructure fund? You have procedures, lay down law in the Ministry of Roads. Why do you need a fund to build roads? It's because you don't have money. Because the money is going to pay debt. So you're creating another avenue to siphon money to pretend you're doing something. That's all what's going on here. There's nothing else. Nothing else. All you're seeing here is just continual conmanship. And really, I challenge the media. And I challenge my fellow leaders. Enlighten Kenyans. Stop talking language they don't understand. Enlighten them on these issues properly.
But when Kenyans hear that JKIA will be modernized through this particular fund, they might see it as a silver bullet.
Really? Who are these new owners of JKIA? Who? Is it us? Are we still owning it? Are we funding private entities? What is the reality? What is the reality, Jesse? Where, if it is to do with us, where did you ask us for our participation? Tell me. You're saying JKI is starting. Is it ours? If it is ours, funded by us, where did you ask us for our public participation? That's the law. Did you ask us? Have you been asked? So, which are these Kenyans that are hearing? Which ones? You see, something is fundamentally very wrong here. And I don't know how I'm going to keep repeating it. It is just a con.
Simple.
All these are just con. These are con men in office. There's nothing else here. Debt collectors and con men.
Well, it seems to be a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside a quagmire. And anyway.
Well put.
So, Kenya Kwanza's legacy projects, SHA, affordable housing, growing NSSF savings. As we finish up on matters to do with the economy, President William Ruto says his development track record will speak for itself. As a matter of fact, he goes ahead and says, tough decisions now mean long-term benefits for Kenyans. From where you sit, how do you rate the handling of the economy by the Kenya Kwanza administration? Briefly, as we finalize on economies.
Mzalendo tracker, I repeat.
Okay.
Has been very clear. 251 promises, 24 achieved, 10%. That is William Ruto's assessment, Kenya Kwanza's assessment. That is the examination. They have 500 days, eh? Let them try and do even 20%. Okay, and that's still below par. It is still a failure. I don't know which class passes somebody with 10%. If they get to 20, I don't know whether that's a pass mark. Kenyans will decide.
Okay.
Right.
Let's talk politics and perhaps borrowing from the Nico Kadi movement, because we currently have the enhanced continuous voter registration exercise going on. In the backdrop, there's roughly 500,000 identity cards that haven't been picked from the relevant government offices. Speak to the young generation that is trying to be the change they want to see in the country, leading from the front. Does the youth vote have a potential to change the dynamics of Kenya's presidential race?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm very encouraged by the youth vote. I'm very encouraged by the youth participation in politics. When we were out talking to Kenyans in the year 2022, we found a lot of young people found politics as something to do with, not to do with their lives. Something out there. If people are just hurling insults at each other, it's a dirty game.
Hence the voter apathy.
Apathy.
Yeah.
The time 8 million people didn't vote. And I believe more than half of that was the youth. Now, look at the way they have transformed with the finance bill. They actually saw the connection between their livelihood and politics. And they so succeeded for the first time in our history in anguishing a tax bill. People say they were not successful. I don't know what success is measured on. They were against the Finance Bill 2024 that was increasing taxes for all of us Kenyans. And they succeeded because it was dropped. That to me is success. And what was the cost? Bloodshed. Bloodshed. If those MPs had negotiated that finance bill, the bloodshed of our young generation of Gen Zs would not have been spilled. So we hold those MPs, anyone who stood there and refused to listen to the voice of the people, refused to listen to Kenyans who are saying we don't want to pass any more pain to our lives with more tax. You didn't listen, you must never be anywhere near leadership and must be voted out. Anyone who passed it. Even William Ruto threw you all under a bus when he dropped it. So your history, you should be history. Number two, that they now understand categorically their lives and the political direction of our country. And I can tell you the pendulum of our politics shifted in 2024. Now it is about Jesse, your life in your home, and my life in my home, and everybody else's home, right? Your destiny, both economically and morally. How you want your children to grow up. Do you want them to have opportunity? What it takes to bring them up. Each and every one of us, crossing tribe, crossing class, crossing everything. It is each and every one of us. Let me assure you, I have so much confidence in this young generation. I don't know why people are panicking. Let me tell you, they spilled blood. Their blood was spilled here. By this regime, they will be there at the ballot. They will be there to vote. They will be there to monitor. And this is going to be an amazing election, like we've never seen before. I have a lot of confidence. And even if you see they are slow today, they'll pick up tomorrow. We Kenyans are very last minute. We like doing things the last minute. So I am sure.
And when legacy politicians say they're active online,
I love that
but
word.
when rubber meets the road, these are just hashtags. They won't make a difference.
We are afraid of them.
Okay.
Legacy politicians are afraid of this new politics. It does not correspond with the way they know.
Okay.
And they are refusing to accept, Jesse, that times have changed. Times have completely changed. Let me, if you don't mind, I'll go on.
Briefly here.
Change comes announced. It does not come quietly. 8 million not participating in 2022. The largest voter in 2022 was the one that did not show up, that did not leave their home to go and vote. It's never happened in the history of this country. Never, Jesse. Look at multipartyism since 1992. The non-voter was always a minority. Right? Now, that's the first announcement of change. The second was 2024. The Gen Z revolution on a tax bill cemented the economy for the first time so deliberately in each and every one of our lives. And we must be very clear. It was classless, it was tribeless, it was leaderless, it was all those things. It covered 37 counties in demonstrations that have never been seen since independence of this country. Right? Second announcement of change. On an issue, cross-cutting. Yeah. Third was the death of Raila Amolo Odinga. Fundamental, because Raila has been 30 years of Kenya's political history. You are either for him or against him, reacting for him or against him. A lot of the templates you've seen, you imagine how great a leader he was in his time, right? That you could put 18 different political templates to his name from when he moved out to start something called NDP Tinga, right? 18. That politics of even Wagogo, tribal kingpins, he cemented. That era has gone. Change comes announced. And yet the legacy politicians want to drag us back to nonsense. The issues we want to discuss are the impact of fuel prices, at the impact of all these taxes William Ruto is taking. Okay?
Okay. I'd like your take on the current political class, because as much as you're a player, I'm pretty sure you have your reservations or your opinion whether countering or supporting the steps taken by either the opposition or the broad-based government. We have an opposition that has been criticized as lacking policy, big on noise, one term, but at the end of the day, they're a little bit light on policy issues. On the flip side, we have a broad-based machine, and I call it a machine since these are the two foremost parties in the country. ODM over 20 years, we have UDA that is ruling currently, which are in a working relationship, working towards a pre-election agreement. But this ODM seems to be a shell of its former self. It's not what Baba left, because they're pulling in different directions. The Safina wing, which is saying, you know, we sort of have a convergence of thoughts with those who are saying Ruto must go. But the other side is saying power is our priority and we'll get it by any means possible, be it through the DP position, be it through a 50-50 agreement with our sibling partners, UDA. What do you make of the current political landscape as we get into what exactly Safina is doing? Yeah.
Let me maybe answer you in a different way.
Okay.
Every election has what is called a question. All right? So we go to 1992 when we first had our first presidential election. It was 1992. The question at the time was, Moi must go. All right? But we were new to this game, Kenyans. And all we did was divide ourselves in tribes. In 97, the question was again, Moi must go. But before he goes, there must be reforms. Because without those reforms, we can't get rid of him. And that is when the two-term limit came, by the way. And that was a compromise. But Moi must go. So 2002, Moi was going. And Moi decided he wants to put somebody. Right? Which majority of Kenyans believed was a puppet. And the game came again. Moi must go. He must not extend himself. We don't want to see KANU or any of its orphans. And that was the deciding point in 2002. Moi must go. And he went. In 2007, we had probably the most divisive election we've ever had, when it was a question of 40 against 1. Now, that was a divisive election. It was the first major tribal election. And it caused the death of 1,400 Kenyans at the end of it. But that was the question. Nobody said the economy was not better, that there was more freedoms. No, yeah, but everyone just said, one tribe is the beneficiary.
Yeah.
Okay? Yet they got there with the collective of all. 2013, what was the election question? Do you recall?
ICC.
Right.
Yeah.
And in 2017, that was some that we participated in helping Raila. And we called it NASA. This is about thieves of the economy and our lives. 2022, William Samoei Ruto and his Kenya Kwanza Brigade coined the hustler narrative, a class structure between the have-nots against the haves. The haves being termed as the dynasty. Right? And he succeeded.
Yeah.
But take note, there's a continuous cementation of the economy and the share of the cake. Continue. Now, what do you believe this election is about?
My mind says issues, but going by the culture and the pattern of voting, I think ethnicity might still play a part.
So you believe the legacy politicians are going to have their say?
Yeah, because you train a tree while it's still young. The young voters might be heavy on issues, the older voters are confident with, you know, repetition. This is what I've been doing and it's gotten us this far. So why should I change right now? That's my argument.
So what is the question people will be answering when they go there?
When they go
to the ballot,
yeah.
What will they be voting for? Their tribe. Are you trying to tell me that as we sit here as Kenyans, we have something against the tribe of the president because it's in power? Is that what one term, two term is about? Yeah.
But politics is a game of numbers.
Right.
And these numbers
No, what is the question? I'm agreeing. Let's get it. We can get it. What is the question we are going to the ballot about? What is the question? You have the legacy politicians that are grouping the question as one term and two term.
Okay.
One term and two term. Right? And particularly the one termers are branding themselves in tribal cocoons to remove the two term. And the two term are the ones you're saying now are talking about broad-based and other things to do with parties.
Yeah.
Them, they are trying to draw the lines more on party lines rather than the obvious regions.
Yeah.
Now, is that the question? Because we must ask ourselves, so two terms so that we get what? The two-term result is what? One term of William Samoei Ruto has produced 10% performance of his promises. So far, 10%. So we're getting two terms to do what? To continue what? At that pace?
Ndo wamalize kazi.
No, maliza kazi gani? Hii wamefika 10%. So hiyo ingine utafika wapi? So that we go to Singapore. Here, 10% before you talk about Singapore.
Okay.
When you talk about one term, you're removing Ruto so that what? Jesse, we were just talking about how debt is an issue. Niambie, when Ruto is removed, does he go with the debt? Does he go with the 14 trillion? If you're telling me he goes with the 14 trillion, sawa. Does he?
No, he doesn't.
That 14 trillion is taking today, please, I remind you, 4 to 5 billion shillings borrowing. It is us owing 220. It is, okay, 80% minimum growing to 90% of our tax revenue going to that item. Our sweat is going to that item. Does he go with it?
So what will inform 2027 general election from where you sit?
The question of the 2027 general election is the economy.
Simple.
Simple. As James Garvey said, the economy is stupid.
Okay, we're back to where we started. Interesting, but let's speak realities. There's an ideal scenario, and a reality scenario. At the end of the day, we're dealing with a tactful politician who I believe has never lost an election. I'm speaking of William Ruto. And the narrative out there is that if this opposition does not unite, atapita katikati. He can easily manipulate and perhaps carry the day during the 2027 general election. And perhaps that's where Safina party comes in. You're the party leader. You've been quite vocal about the economy and how you project Kenya should be. That's the ideal scenario. Reality is numbers at the end of the day matter. So how will a Safina presidency look like? Are we sort of anticipating a convergence of ideas with this one-term camp, or you're aiming as a third force, an alternative to the status quo? And how do we break even? Yeah.
You know, Jesse, I'll start with the beginning.
Yeah.
About William Ruto being cunning or what, an incumbent. You know, Jesse, I like the way you ask your questions. You are now really at par anywhere in the world in terms of asking questions from the media. And one of the things that is always best understood is when there is a lot of analysis done before any conclusions are reached on whether one is happening, going this way or that way.
Yeah.
If you look at any president since multipartyism, the re-election is very difficult. Very difficult.
The curse of incumbency.
There's been no exception. And William Ruto will not be an exception. In fact, he's probably facing the worst I've ever known. Okay? Moi kept being re-elected by 33 to 34, 35% of the vote. Those days you did not need 50 plus 1.
Yeah.
Kibaki in 2007, there's a lot of controversy as to whether they got elected or not. But he had one critical thing. Even him with the so-called Gemma numbers was coming with a similar percentage as Moi did around the country.
Yeah.
Right? He was coming to the table with about 35%. Right? And convention wisdom says that it just took them encouraging Kalonzo Musyoka to go off with canvas, and it denied Raila a win, and it denied Kibaki an outright win. Because if you take Kalonzo's numbers and you give them to either side, tells you where it would have swung. Now, come 2017, the Uhuru election, Supreme Court said there had been fraud. Correct?
Yes.
That is Uhuru, who had more going for him than William Ruto currently does. William Ruto has faced his referendum. And every regime faces a referendum. Kibaki faced a referendum in 2005. That is what made his re-election so difficult. People could not understand how, if you lost in 2005, how did you win in 2007? All right?
Yeah.
Uhuru faced his referendum. Many people don't understand it. When we were busy pushing Okoa, Kenya, and he rejected it, and we went on the streets to remove IBC commissioners and change the election laws, that is when 34A, 34B, C, and the election of a president in the constituency and the electronic, that's where he faced his albatross.
Okay.
This one has faced his referendum in 2024. All right?
Yeah.
Now, what numbers does he have? The constituency is which one? The one who is looking at defending a performance of 10% of his promises? A tribal arithmetic? Which one? Which one? He doesn't have it. This, which one? Does not have the numbers.
The people who vote with a Mtuwetu mentality.
No, I'm telling you, there's not enough.
Okay.
If he goes that way, that's
Yeah.
why, please understand William Ruto. He was smart enough to understand that. All right? And this is where his wittiness comes in.
Okay.
He created a community called the Hustler, the transcended tribe. Because if it's tribe, he did not have the numbers. Right? He was then relying on Mount Kenya numbers, which ended up being half his vote anyway. Right? But it's because Mount Kenya understands not only were they giving back to him, but they also understood the hustler narrative. It's about us who hustle every day. Like him, he said he's a kuku farmer, and he went to school barefoot. I'm a have-not like most Kenyans. Right?
Yeah.
So he spread his reach and created a tribe called the Hustler that transcended tribal and regional barriers. All right. The others, unfortunately, my friend Uhuru and Ruto, Uhuru and Raila, did not have a good enough narrative.
Okay.
They didn't. So what is he going to now say? He's no longer about a hustler? What is he going to sell? So which is this Mutuwetu? If he relies on tribe, he won't make it. His tribal numbers won't make it. And that means that he's going back to a politics that didn't get him there. That's why he's quick at saying it's about an agenda. Don't make it personal. It's about an agenda.
Yeah.
Right? And he must understand that there must be some difficulty from some of the legacy politicians in the opposition to talk about an agenda. Right? So he's clever enough to understand that Kenyans have actually moved to agenda politics. So now instead of saying a hustler economy or for the hustler, he's talking about Singapore. He's appealing to the young generation. These ones that did a referendum on him, the Gen Z, right? That are 65 to 70% of the vote. He's appealing to them to tell them, by the way, your dreams on Instagram, right? Your dreams that you see the rest of the world, right? I'm the one to fulfill it. If you think I can't, listen to the others. They have no idea, such ideas. That's all. That's all.
Yeah.
So he is actually understood the graduation of our politics from the ethnic inculcation to agenda. He has. The hustler narrative was a clear understanding of it because he brought a class war, right? He's been unable to fulfill, right? But he embedded it in us. There are those who have, and there are those who don't have. That, by the way, has increased. There are now more who don't have than when he came to power, before he came to power. There are more poorer people today than they were before he came.
Yeah, yeah.
So he has not fulfilled.
Okay.
I believe is going to be on the agenda of Kenyans in their own homes, their own lives. Are you able to pay your cost of living? Are you able to see your kids through school? Are you able to take care of their health? Are you able to get a job? Are your children able to get jobs as you've taken them through this education cycle? Because you know, many parents, we underestimate the effort parents make in taking their kids to educate to school. That thing is an unbelievable cost for parents because it's an obligation on all of us, right, as parents. And to see your child after all that come out and have no job or have to bribe to get the few jobs that are available is tragic. The promise was a lie. These kids, you know, I sat with a few of them. I've been sitting with quite a number of the younger generation.
Yeah.
And many people will tell you that the hardship that they go through, because many go to boarding from when they are 6 years old, 9 years old, right? They are brought up by teachers and fellow students. Going home for holidays is such a relief, but it's so few months of the year. They hardly get to know their parents.
Okay.
Right? It is hardship, continual hardship, with the promise that after all this, there is a future. Then you realize it is stolen. That is the voter. The voter who is going through that, and the voter who is seeing the product of that. Okay? Our kids coming out and having no future after all our sweat. That transcends tribe, region, party, all these conmanships. It transcends. And that makes you understand that change is here. You talk about the traditional.
Okay.
It's you media who want to portray the traditional because those are the narratives you're used to, right? Somebody going and waving a flag of tribalism. Sawa. Sawa. If it is a question of numbers, my friend, right? There are people who will never see leadership in this country. Okay? just
Okay.
because of where they were born. Is it their fault where they were born? No. Leadership must be about your ideas and your forthrightness to implement them. Your capacity, your tenacity, your ability. There are some people here, you imagine, are they going to be mentors to your own children, Jesse? If you see them up there, are they? No. They are there by accident of being born. Give me a break. There must be more to this table than that.
Okay, Wanjigi. As we finalize, perhaps a yes or no answer. Are you willing to work with the united opposition? Have they tried and tested their capacity to implement promises, as you said?
I am willing to work with anybody that is on agenda politics.
On agenda
An
politics?
agenda is simply this.
Okay.
My ours is very simple.
Uh-huh.
We have diagnosed that the problem in this country is economy. And that the period we're going through is about our economic freedom. We have been slaves, whether to Muzungus in the colonial era or to African Muzungus since independence, masked in tribal cocoons. We have been slaves as Kenyans to a class of people up here that has held us hostage. And they have been defined. Mara one, a tribe, Mara a dynasty, Mara sijui nini, Mara conmen.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it is about each and every one of our lives. And we have clearly diagnosed the problem we are facing today. That is the debt issue. The debt, no matter what you do, is our slavery. It is taking away 80% to 90% of whatever we are earning. So our policy is this. And we will join up with anybody who subscribes and agrees to this policy. What is illegal to us in terms of that debt, we shall not pay. Which means that we have a saving of minimum of 2 trillion per year. Money that is generated by us that does not now go out to debt. Because it's illegal. And what does that mean, Jesse? Simply this, that Kenyan who now refuses to pay that debt will be saved 220 from their head. 2, that they can now get services that they pay for. Money remains in their pocket. No more money to any education, primary, high school, TVET. None. Keep that money in your pocket.
Okay.
It is 265 billion. We are saving 2 trillion, 265 billion. Universal health care. And people underestimate the pain of looking for money for health. WhatsApp groups here that are opened all over to raise money for somebody's ailment. Universal health care has been costed as 180 billion per year. See, we are saving 2 trillion. Your ID gives you universal health care in any government hospital. You walk in, you get your medicine, you get your surgery. I want us to debate quality, rollout and quality. That's all. We can afford it. Keep the money in your pocket. It means that we do not have to have this crazy taxation. Because one thing that is eating us is taxation. And we'll simply start by saying VAT will come down to 5%. Right? The 11% that you're being saved, keep it in your pocket.
Okay.
It means we are not going to borrow from the domestic market. So banks will look for Jesse to give him a mortgage instead of looking for affordable housing nonsense. To give you a mortgage, right? In your home, to buy your home, your dream home, at 2 to 3% that you're paying over 22, 25 years. Long-term money that you can afford. All right? Now, this is what we're opening up. And on the basis of that, we are saying Kenyans will never have to borrow again, whether domestically or internationally. We can fund all our needs, all right, with what we are currently producing. Are we on the same page?
Definitely.
On that agenda,
Yeah.
we can come together. On this other talk, because then we're just telling Kenyans a lie. You sit there, anyone can sit there. You face the same problems of William Ruto. And if you're not clear about this thing, you'll be the same liar, the same conman will be pointing at.
As we finalize, you've had an unsuccessful bid at the presidency. I could put it that you didn't get to the finish line due to various factors. 2027 is just around the corner. Two things. How are you planning to popularize Safina Party? And why should Kenyans trust you with the country's leadership?
I intend to popularize my candidature and that of Safina's with the agenda. It is not about Jimmy Wanjigi. I like to see Safina and I say, God, in his wisdom, help me put Paul Moite and I together. Because he had started something in the multi-party era called Safina that was really about saving Kenyans from the oppression of anti-democratic forces. But Safina in its context in the Bible, and I'm a staunch Catholic, in its concept in the Bible was Noah's Ark. And during that period in the Bible, God sought to punish human beings, mankind, because it has been fraught with decadence and immorality. I'm going to punish mankind. Enter this Safina, and those who do not listen to my prophet Noah, my messenger Noah, shall perish. And they did with the floods. We have got to understand that if you do not enter this ark called Safina with this agenda, you shall perish. You shall perish economically, you shall perish as a nation. This agenda we are talking about is not for me. It is for all of us. It is to make sure that we do not perish as a nation. That's why we have sought the last few years just trying to do civic education. Now we are going to now take it politically so that people understand this is what is ailing them, not his Sarakasi or the legacy politicians. So we intend to popularize this party on the agenda of the people, because it's about the people, it's not about Jimmy Wanjigi. I am but a messenger, right, who has this knowledge. That's number one. Number two, you asked me a good question, a very good question. Am I going to the end? I can assure you, absolutely. Absolutely. We are going to the end. There's a reason we were stopped in 2022. There are people who saw what was going to happen. This time, there's nothing like stopping. I've never seen an election where IEBC is sitting down deciding that they don't want people to be candidates. Other than 2022, I've never seen anything like that.
So you've anticipated the roadblocks?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. There's nothing they are going to do to block candidatures here. All right? They are not going to succeed in that direction. This time, Kenyans have themselves on the ballot, not individuals. It is about themselves. So Safina is going out there. Safina is going to sell this agenda. We are going to talk about the emancipation of the people economically. That is what is plaguing us today. That is what is going to finish us. That flood, you have not seen anything yet. You see, there are people who say I talk too much doom. Let me assure you, remove this doom called debt. This country you will not be the same. You are talking about an arena you cannot imagine. Today, you are saying about 50% of Kenyans are below the are poor.
Okay.
Half are multidimensional poor. By simply giving education and health. Education and health. You remove half. What does that mean? You have poverty rate here in one instant. You don't know what that means economically. All our lives, no matter where you are, change in an instant. In an instant, you have more consumers, more producers, right? Huger markets, right? And energy you cannot believe happens here. You have possibilities of doubling GDP within a very short period of time, 5 years. You have an economy you cannot believe is existing in your lifetime.
All right.
Asante.
Asante sana. You said you're a staunch Catholic. The Bible says, my people perish due to lack of knowledge.
Correct.
I think this has been a class session. Class was in progress and we've just finished. So thank you so much for giving us tidbits of wisdom, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, as they say, even as we converse matters to do with the economy and Kenya's governance landscape. Thank you so much for according us your time.
Thank you very much, Jesse.
Well,
thank you for coming.
Asante sana.
Appreciate you.
That's been
Good
the
evening,
conversation
everybody.
with Jimmy Wanjigi, a prominent businessman and the party leader of Safina Party. He says 2027 will be a time for change, and he's the agent of change. Kenyans will have the final say. We're simply doing our job as members of the Fourth Estate. My name is Jesse Rogers. Good evening.